In February of 1258, the most powerful family in the Islamic world made a mistake that would erase them from history. Inside the Abbasid Palace in Baghdad, surrounded by gold-inlaid walls, fountains fed by the Tigris, and libraries older than most nations, the Caliph and his household waited. Outside the city, Mongol siege engines were already in position. The ground trembled under the movement of horses. Smoke rose from villages that no longer existed. Baghdad had been many things for over 500 years. It had been a capital. It had been a university. It had been the center of the world's intellectual gravity. And because of that, its rulers believed it could not be destroyed. What happened next was not a spontaneous massacre. It was not uncontrolled violence. It was a deliberate, bureaucratic, ideologically precise dismantling of a ruling bloodline. By the end of this documentary, you will understand three things history rarely confronts honestly: why the Mongols did not simply execute the Abbasid Caliph, and why the method they chose mattered more than death itself; why every member of Baghdad's royal household was treated as a political problem to be solved, not as a prisoner to be spared; why the destruction of this single family permanently altered global history, and why no Islamic capital ever fully replaced Baghdad afterward. This story is not about savagery. It is about power, procedure, and erasure, and it begins long before the first wall fell. If you're into medieval history, please hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comment section what time and country you're watching from. It amazes me to see how far stories like this could go. Al-Mustaʿsim Billah was the 37th Abbasid Caliph. By lineage, he was the heir to an empire that once stretched from the Atlantic to the borders of China. By reality, he ruled little more than Baghdad and its surrounding lands. Real power had already slipped away into the hands of viziers, military commanders, and rival dynasties. But symbolic power remained, and symbolism was what al-Mustaʿsim trusted most. When Mongol envoys arrived demanding submission, tribute, and acknowledgement of Mongol supremacy, the Caliph did not respond with mobilization. He did not strengthen the city's defenses. He did not consolidate armies from the provinces. Instead, he sent letters. Letters invoking God. Letters invoking his role as Caliph. Letters reminding the Mongols that Baghdad was sacred. What he failed to understand was fatal. The Mongols did not recognize sacred cities. They recognized only submission or extinction. To Hulagu Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan and commander of the Western Mongol armies, the Caliph's response was not diplomacy, it was refusal. And refusal triggered a policy that had already erased dozens of royal families across Asia. The Mongols did not rule by coexistence. They ruled by finality. Their doctrine was simple. As long as a royal bloodline survives, rebellion remains possible. So when Mongols conquered a polity, they did not merely defeat its army, they dismantled its ruling class with surgical precision. Royal men were eliminated, heirs were erased, women were redistributed or absorbed, symbols were destroyed, records were eliminated. This was not cruelty, it was insurance. Baghdad posed a unique problem. The Abbasid Caliph was not just a king, he was a religious figure whose authority extended far beyond his actual territory. His survival meant that resistance could reform anywhere under his name. Hulagu Khan did not march on Baghdad to conquer it. He marched to terminate the Abbasid institution entirely. The siege of Baghdad began in January 1258. It ended in February. That alone should tell you everything. Mongol engineers redirected the Tigris River, flooding defensive positions. Siege engines battered walls that had not been modernized in generations. Abbasid forces, underfunded and disorganized, collapsed almost immediately. Inside the city, panic spread. Outside, Mongol discipline never wavered. When the city finally surrendered, Mongol commanders did not celebrate, they prepared, because surrender did not mean mercy, it meant access. When Mongol troops entered the Abbasid palace, they did not behave like looters, they behaved like auditors. Members of the royal household were separated from servants, names were recorded, relationships were mapped, marriages were identified, children were counted. The Caliph was isolated immediately. This moment matters, because from this point forward, every action was deliberate. The Mongols were not deciding what to do. They were executing a plan they had used before. The Mongols believed that spilling the blood of kings and sacred figures could anger the heavens. So they developed alternatives. Al-Mustaʿsim was not publicly executed. There was no spectacle, no crowd. Instead, he was wrapped tightly in thick carpets, layers of felt and fabric that immobilized his body completely. Horses were brought in, then they rode over him, slowly, repeatedly. The weight crushed bones, internal organs failed. The caliph died without a drop of royal blood touching the ground. The taboo was observed. The message was unmistakable. Your God did not intervene. Your title did not matter. Your lineage ends here. This was not mercy. This was symbolic annihilation. After the caliph's death, attention turned to his sons. They were not generals. They were not decision makers. They were heirs, and heirs are dangerous. Some accounts describe immediate execution. Others suggest brief detention. What is consistent across sources is the outcome. The Abbasid princes did not survive. No male heir was allowed to live, because leaving even one would allow the dynasty to regenerate. This was not vengeance, it was policy. The women of the Abbasid court were not treated uniformly, but none were spared the collapse of their world. Some were executed, particularly those closely tied to succession. Others were taken captive and redistributed among Mongol elites or allies. Royal women were not viewed as innocents, they were viewed as carriers of legitimacy. Marriage could transmit authority, children could resurrect dynasties. So the Mongols ensured no independent Abbasid lineage survived. The household was broken, scattered, absorbed. The Abbasid family did not continue in exile. It ended. With the royal family destroyed, the rest of Baghdad was unleashed. What followed was not chaos. It was methodical devastation. Libraries were burned, scholars were killed, hospitals were destroyed, canals were broken, infrastructure was deliberately crippled. Witnesses described the Tigris running black with ink and red with blood. The purpose was not terror alone, it was irreversibility. Baghdad was not meant to recover. The Mongols did not kill Baghdad because they hated Islam. They killed Baghdad because it represented continuity. By destroying the Abbasid family, they decapitated the symbolic head of an entire civilization. No caliph in Baghdad again, no uncontested center, no unified authority. What followed was fragmentation. Islam survived, but it was permanently decentralized. Power shifted to Cairo, then later to Istanbul, but Baghdad never reclaimed its role. The Mongols did not just kill people, they changed history's direction. Baghdad's fall is often portrayed as inevitable. It wasn't. It was the result of complacency, miscalculation, and faith in symbolism over force. The Mongols were not invincible, but they were ruthless about systems. If you had lived inside Baghdad's palace in 1258, surrounded by gold,